Well, Marky Dragon, also known as Marcus Eikenberry in real life, and I am here with Ali Aras. You are a member of the Council of Stellar Management.
Yes, I'm a member of the 8th Council. The 9th Council will be, we're at FanFest, the 9th Council is going to be elected. The voting is already closed. The announcement for who makes it on happens tomorrow night at 5 p.m.
Oh, so actually, by the time everybody sees this, you could be out of here.
I could, yeah. I've got my fingers crossed, but I was in the election. I did run for re-election. I'm feeling pretty good, but there's always that chance that something's just gone horribly wrong.
Tell me why this council was created. Why do we have this?
So there's a couple of different origin stories, actually. It's kind of a funny little political thing. One option, or the story goes that there was this scandal where a developer was cheating. He was spawning Tech2 BPOs and giving them to his alliance mates. And that was awful and horrible. And CCP created the Internal Affairs Department and also the Council of Stellar Management as kind of a check on CCP and what CCP is doing, and a filter to help the players have some way of keeping CCP accountable. It's evolved since then. Right now, if I'm trying to give a summary to someone who has no idea what I'm talking about, I'll say volunteer consulting. But we are a lobbying group for the players. Players will come to us and they'll say, this needs work, this is broken, this is really hurting my gameplay right now. Can you bring it to CCP's attention? Can you get it on their agenda? And we've done that successfully, and that's been amazing. We're a focus group. We sign an NDA with CCP, and they give us early access to features that are coming out, both sort of fully developed features where they're just kind of showing us it before it goes public, and even way back in the design process. And that's incredibly valuable for CCP and for the player base. I've been telling people who to vote for. You want to find someone who thinks like you, because it means that in that room, when CCP comes to us and they show us a feature that they have, that person will be able to look at it and they'll be able to evaluate it like you do. And so they'll be able to give CCP feedback earlier, where it's easier to act on, and make the things that actually come out in the game way better. And watching that happen over the past year has just been incredible.
That's of benefit to everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can totally see that. Okay, so you are probably, you were telling me that you have not spent as much time in the game as maybe other people that are on the council. And would it be a fair statement to say that you like your character is maybe the youngest on the council?
I haven't gone back and looked at previous councils too far, but it's highly likely, at least youngest at time of election. My character age is pretty old because I tried to subscribe a couple times and then fell off the wagon like a lot of people do. But
it only took me 3 or 4 times before I got in for a good job. Yeah.
And so I resubscribed in June, and the CSM elections were in April. So I've been playing for about 10 months when I got elected, which is relatively short. Usually people are older, both because you get sort of different kinds of expertise, and you end up having this network of connections. I just jumped in blind and ended up building it during the election.
So tell me, this is something that's very fascinating to me, because I think that a lot of people look at the game and say things like, I have no chance of participating in something like this because I haven't been here forever. But you've done it. You know, with just in a relatively short period of time, you were able to actually get yourself elected. How did you do that?
Mostly by completely ignoring that.
What?
People who say...
Were you an unwilling electee?
No, I mean by completely ignoring the idea that oh, well, I can't do anything because I'm not, I haven't been playing for a year. I don't have a capital. I don't have a Titan.
There was no I can't do in your vocabulary.
Yeah,
okay.
And it was just like, oh, you know what, I'm going to try this. And I think it helped that I started with a bunch of other people, at a similar kind of level. It wasn't as big as Brave Newbies are, but it was maybe 10, 15 new players, and we kept pulling in a couple more of our friends off and bringing them in. And so when you have a group like that, that's that small and that new, someone has to lead a fleet. And there's no obvious veteran who's going to lead it, so might as well be me. If I want more fleets to happen, I should go out there.
So you're not afraid to take the lead.
Yeah, and that
probably helps.
And I was in a sort of fortuitous situation where there wasn't, I think some people coming in end up in an alliance or an area of space where there's a very old established order of people, and so you're not, it's like joining an older company. You're never going to be the VP because, well, you're just an engineer, now you're a senior engineer, now you're like a managing engineer.
It's because there's so much seniority in front of you.
Exactly. And when you join a group or start a group where you don't have that, you can do whatever you want. Because someone has to do the functions of sort of alliance leadership, corp leadership, diplomacy, all that. And once I was doing that, it was a little more natural to jump into trying to do the CSM thing. I was with a group at the time, Providence, that didn't have a clear candidate when I decided to run. Another one stepped up, and he's actually running again this year, so it'll be interesting to see how he does. But I had put my name forward as someone that people had at least seen around, and that was kind of the pilot light, if you will. And from there, it was just, going on podcasts, talking to people, shaking hands.
I think you engage with the community beyond just inside the game. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, that's the only way to do it. If you're gonna, especially with we're using a single transferable vote system, so it's incredibly important that you make friends, that you don't, if you're just in one little area working on one little thing, those people will vote for you, no one else will ever hear for you. So, got on Twitter, got a blog, got all that stuff going on.
Now, you say it's incredibly important to make friends, but you're a little bit of a warmonger at the same time.
Yeah, so I didn't get elected. I didn't get any votes from Providence this year because I started a war. And it's interesting. One of the weird things about being on the CSM is in the game, the politics are everything. On the CSM, you're kind of a layer above the politics. So I ran on a platform supporting the Not Read, Don't Shoot stuff, supporting some of the Providence experience, because those are the people who I was seeing as my constituents at the time. And then the relationship just deteriorated. And so in-game, we shoot each other a lot. Out of game, I was still delivering on those campaign
Still
promises.
An advocate for them.
Yeah. Because it's, they're a fine, active, healthy region of space. But no, relationship deteriorated, and it ended up with their head diplomat came to us and said, this was all started over a Navy omen. Someone was behaving badly. We exploded their Navy omen for behaving badly, and then the other parties basically came in and said, pay that back, and we said, we don't reimburse dumb people. And
they were offended?
They were offended, and for the want of 80 million, it turned into pay it back or else what? Or else we kick you out. No, you won't. Try us. And that suddenly there's, 300 pilots in system in battleships and SBUs going up and guns everywhere. And we ended up calling in a bunch of help and not sleeping for 2 weeks. But held out.
All this for virtual stuff.
For very little virtual stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, one insult starts a war.
Yep, that's how it goes at Eve.
Do you have any real political background, like from real life?
Nope. I'm in real life. I operated a nuclear reactor for a little bit. I was a like physics undergrad, then computer programmer, and now I've moved into doing support and consulting. And none of that's, I guess the support and consulting stuff is relatively political sometimes, but I got into that after I got into the CSM, and actually ended up talking about the CSM in a job interview. It was kind of interesting to explain.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like when I explained to my parents that I make a living in video games,
right?
They're like, "You make them?" You know, that's their understanding of it.
Sure.
So in game, how do you actually make a living? Do you get donations in, or are you actually going out and doing stuff, or sleeping on the couch, virtually?
Yeah, I moved from the alliance that I was in Providence to that was called Of Sound Mind, to Nora Mercenary Group. So I'm a merc now. I make some money by shooting people. I supplement that by buying plaques. Because I just recently got a new job that's taking up a lot of my time. But most of my income these days comes from PvP or that. I have in the past, I started with a scheme to buy rat loot in bulk from my alliance neighbors in Providence, whatever. As soon as I filled up one blockade runner, haul it out to Empire, melt it down, sell the good stuff, pocket the difference. And that was making me a respectable newbie income. I did some ninja salvaging before that, warping in and just borrowing people's mission sites. And then I've done some 0-0 ratting. I had a reaction farm with posses for a while, which taught me the joy and glory of POS management. I don't want to do that again. It made me a lot of money, but it was a pain in the neck.
Yeah, and something that has to be maintained.
Yeah,
and that's the worst part of it. You can't just say, okay, I'm going to sit down for a couple hours and play today, and forget about it for a week.
It's kind of like that, except instead of playing where you undock, you shoot bad guys, you Black Ops drop on other bad guys, have some great fights, get your blood pumping, adrenaline flowing. Instead, you look at your spreadsheet, you take your freighter to Jita very, very slowly, you look at your spreadsheet again, you type a lot of things, you buy them, you put them in your hold, you take your freighter back, you contract it to your jump freighter, you jump your freighter in, and then you log onto your other character to move stuff from the sys station to the POS and a hauler, and you got offline things, and you got online things, and it ends up being, I have spent, I'm like, oh great, I get to play Eve tonight, this is wonderful. I've spent that entire 3-hour play session just
grinding it,
moving numbers around.
Dumb work.
Yeah, and I understand that there are some people who are incredibly fulfilled by that.
Oh, absolutely. And there are people who love that stuff.
Yeah, and I've worked with them on some of my court mates were doing their own sort of reaction farming scheme, and I was providing advice and wisdom from the previous experience, and they had a blast. Me, I think I prefer if I'm going to do something PvE, I think my favorite thing right now would be to go out and do exploration. Scan stuff down, run a combat site, do a relic site, get some either salvage or possibly valuable loot from the combat site. And when I have time to log on, when I have a character in a place where I can do that, that's what I do. I know there's also some wormhole ops that I could go to, but that requires being in the same place at the same time every week, and doesn't always work out because I'm often doing other stuff.
Well, do you find now that you're on the council that you spend a lot more time working on Eve-related things, but not necessarily time in the game?
Yeah, it ends up being playing what a lot of people call like Eve offline. I'm playing Skype, I'm playing Jabber, I'm playing Twitter, and it's fascinating. It's a ton of fun. One of the things that I love about Eve is the other people who are playing it. And so it's
about community.
Exactly. And doing that gives me a chance to engage with the community and nerd out about spreadsheets or numbers or stuff that's coming up. But it does cut down on the amount of time that I can spend undocked PvPing or PvEing or whatever. I'd love to. Gonna try out the industry stuff once the summer expansion drops, because they just redid it all, and maybe now I can get into it and sort of learn it and all that. But I expect I'm gonna end up being one of those hobbyists who just makes a couple things on the side. Oh look, I made like $1 million. Good job. Good job. So it has an effect.
What are so now you said that we find out tomorrow basically what the new election results are.
Sure.
And how long are the terms? Are they a year?
It's a year. So it's FanFest to FanFest.
Okay. And so in this last year, what kind of accomplishments, what have you done? Prove your worth for having been elected.
Well, probably the biggest thing that we did was there's this feature called the Encounter Surveillance System, or ESS, and it came out in Rubicon 1.1, but it was initially slated to come out earlier. And for the CSM, they fly 7 CSMs out to Iceland for a summit. It's basically 3 days of full-day meetings with as many different people from CCP as want to talk to us. And the past 2 summits, that's been a lot of different people who've wanted a little bit of our time. So it's an intense week, and we came out and they presented what was the initial version of this feature. It was not very good. I could see where they were going with it, and some of the initial design philosophy is still present in the final one. The idea is it's a structure that you put up in your nullsec system where you rat and earn bounties, and you give up some of your bounties now for more bounties later. With the catch that in the intervening time, if someone warps in, they can take all of your money and run away. So
it's a little bit of lottery.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a lottery, but if you have defense fleets, if you have an active system, you should be able to fight off anything minor. People have gotten very creative with the positioning of these to make them harder to raid. You can empty it and just sort of share out payments to everyone. It gives back in proportion to what you put in. And so some of that initial design, or some of the initial design survived in that final version. But there was some other stuff that it wouldn't work with EVE players. And that's where we came in. The team presented it, and the CSM, who are generally very kind of positive people, I've found it to be true that you catch more flies with, honey than vinegar. Although of course the reverse is true in real life, but whatever. The saying is. The saying is. The saying part holds true. And in this meeting, it was an almost uncharacteristically passionate, no, this isn't going to work. This isn't ready. These are the things that are going to happen if this goes live the way it is right now. And just hold off. So
basically it got delayed, reworked, and now it's implemented and it's working well.
It's a lot better. Yeah. We ended up having some communication about it after that finished, and then when the team came back to re-implement it, they were very open with us. They brought us in a lot. It was vastly improved, and it was good. It went out. The community had another round of feedback, and we got to do the thing that we sometimes do, where we're a filter on the fire hose of feedback coming out. So I read through the thread. I collected all the points. I put them into a bullet-pointed list, basically, and I said, here's what people are mad about. And it all got fixed. So very successful in terms of the CSM going and taking something and making it better. And that's the kind of thing that we can do Certainly, if CCP works with us, which they've found it beneficial to do,
Mm-hmm.
it saves them a lot of time, and if we have the right kind of people for the job.
You mentioned like coming out here to Iceland, which is where we're at. You can't tell by the background here, but we're at FanFest right now, 2014.
It's awesome.
And yes, awesome. And the so they fly you out here from a couple times a year. What is it?
They fly. It's a 14-person council. They fly 7 people out. There's 2 people who are guaranteed to go both times, and then they pick 5 additional people based on activity and what they're going to talk about and all that kind of stuff. So that means that they fly 7 people out from wherever they live in the world. For me, I live in Boston, Massachusetts, so it's fairly convenient.
Because there's a direct flight from Boston to here.
Yep.
Oh my God, that makes it so much easier.
Oh, it's amazing.
My flight only took 24 hours, and I live in the same time zone as Boston, but it's crazy.
The connections are a mess, so it was not difficult at all. They fly us out to Iceland for a week. You have 1 jet lag day, and then 3 days of meetings, and then back on the plane.
Right. So, did you ever envision that you would play a video game, and that video game would come to you and say, "You're so awesome! I want to fly you out to our headquarters, and I want you to consult on the game"?
No, and I would not have envisioned going to like a whole nother country for a video game.
Yeah.
And now that I'm here, it's fantastic. Like, I loved coming out for the summit. I'm out here for FanFest, obviously, my first FanFest, and I'm having a blast. I've met all kinds of people that maybe know me and I don't know them, or like we've been talking on Twitter for months, and this is the first chance to meet, and I've met new people who I look forward to seeing again next year.
What do your friends and family think? Do they look at you like, "Oh my God, total nerd,"
Most of my friends and family are nerds.
Okay.
You have to do some work to produce this kind of child, but my parents, when I explained like, "Oh yeah, I'm flying out to Iceland," they were a little like, "That's weird." Iceland, okay.
Is this for work?
Have fun, yeah. Well, no, I said I got really involved in the EVE Online community, and I'm working with the developers, and they're flying me out. It's like, oh,
they just don't understand.
That's nice. Yeah, they don't understand. My friends mostly wish that I'd shut up about EVE once in a while.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
There are a couple of them who play EVE. One of them's here. A couple of them are back home. Been texting, tweeting, all that. But they either think, oh, this is this kind of cool thing that Ellen does, or just, which is my real name, is Ellen, or, hi, can we talk about something that's not your video game?
Right.
What other hobbies do you have?
Yeah, I totally get that. Yeah, I have family that sometimes asks how the business is going, and then they're sorry they asked. Oh, video game this, video game that. Yeah.
You develop, I can explain what I'm doing in 1 sentence or 3 sentences, or we can have a whole conversation about it. But I've sort of learned how to check that. Check
whether or
that
not they
temperature.
keep asking questions.
Yep.
That's the key. Yeah. So, now that you've gotten this taste of politics and everything, so you've run for re-election and everything, and that's all fine and dandy. What about does this prep you for if you were to do something in your local community, like outside of the game?
It's actually been something that has inspired me to try and get more involved in my local, physical community, because I've read on the internet a couple of times, people talking about how people my age often don't care about local politics, don't participate in local politics. We're all reading, national blogs, national news. and thinking about policy or whatever on a national scale. You know, I voted in the last presidential election, and when I got my ballot, I had no idea who the local candidates were. And so I think I just skipped over them. But the thing about running for the CSM is there's something like 500,000 subscribers to EVE. So that's, and you know there's got to be less players than that because people have 2 accounts. So that's kind of an upper cap on like the population of EVE Online, 500,000. That's comparable to a lot of smaller towns. And in that,
Oh, absolutely.
and in that scale, participating in the democratic process has a real, measurable, identifiable effect. It is possible for me, sort of as a space politician, to know the people who voted for me. It's possible for me...
I can see that on a resume. Space politician. I think that'd be pretty funny.
Don't phrase it exactly that way. But it's possible for me to know to be able to talk to people who voted for me. It's possible for me as a voter to know that if I vote and if I kind of stump for a candidate that I like, that will have a real measurable impact on how the election turns out. And part of that is the single transferable vote system. It's a lot better than first past the post for like your vote actually matters. But another part of that is just the scale that it's at, and looking at that and then looking at my local community and saying, wait, this is a lot more comparable than I think. And if I become more engaged in that community, then I can make life better for not just video game nerds, but real people who actually live down the street from me.
We are real people.
Yes. Most of them
We're just behind our avatars. Yeah, you mentioned about 500,000 players in EVE and how that's comparable to a small town. I thought I'd just point out that's more people than in the entire country of Iceland.
It is, yes. It's pretty incredible. We've well and taken over Reykjavik for this week. You walk around and you see tons of people with the EVE lanyards and the jet-lagged stares.
Yes. I got here a couple days early so I could get rid of my stare beforehand. So, what if CCP were to at some point offer you a job? Do you think that all this interaction with them and everything gives them a familiarity with you that they might say, hey, let's tag her to move to Iceland, or something like that?
I would be flattered. My life right now, maybe not in the best place for relocating again. I just moved less than a year ago. There have been some people who've joked like, oh, the CSM is just a job. You just run to the CSM interview to have your extended job interview at CCP. And no, that's not true. That's why you become an Alliance tournament commentator. If you look at you've got Dolan, Rise, Fozzie. That's where they came from. But no, I would be flattered. I don't, it would be the kind of thing that I would have to think about.
What if you could design your own dream job at CCP? What would it be?
That's hard because
I can totally see I got the wheels spinning there.
Yeah, one of the hardest or one of the coolest things about being on the CSM is you get to talk to a whole bunch of different people. So, one day we're talking to CCP Rise and other game designers about their vision for the new player experience, and it's a very design type of conversation where that's the kind of thinking we're doing, that's the kind of ideas we're having. And then you come in and some stuff just dropped on Singularity and you're checking it out, and you're working with the QA people to hunt down bugs and try and reproduce defects and get them into the system so that they can, take care of it and handle it from the CCP side. CSM sometimes ends up being like the unofficial exploit report pipeline, which you're not supposed to do. Send it to, I think it's security@ccpgames.com for exploits. You get Plex. But the the diversity of things is fascinating. So while I would say I probably spend most of my time thinking like sort of a design type of person, I have technical skills, and I find the work that CCP Veritas is doing completely fascinating. And Team Gridlock, I have sort of QA interests. I was actually talking to CCP Goliath about, how does games QA work? Because I was watching what he was doing and very impressed by the system that they had here at CCP. So I don't think there is a job that's like bounce around and do all the things.
I think that's called Jack of all trades, or Jill of all trades.
Yeah, but that's the thing that one of the things that I've enjoyed most about the CSM. So having to like settle down and focus and just be like, oh man.
So you've been active in the community in more ways than just in the game. Now you also are involved with the website The Matani.
Yeah, Matani.com. I'm one of the editors there. I started writing there shortly after becoming elected. I wanted to publish a long piece on the upcoming hacking changes in Odyssey, and I'd written it out. I meant it as a blog post, and I was like, well, this could really use a larger audience. My blog isn't very well read. It's not also very well updated. My apologies for that. But I wrote this piece and I submitted it, and it was sort of accepted, and I was brought on doing that, and then rapidly moved into doing more there, just because it's a sort of small growing website, and if you have
it is part of the community picture.
Yeah,
it's one of the cogs in the wheel.
It's the sort of founding premise of the Matani.com was that we would not be first, but we would be best. So we try to mix, some longer feature stuff with up-to-date news and, good writing, and keeping people aware of sort of the goings-on of EVE Online, particularly because it was founded by a bunch of goons. It tends to focus a little more on nullsec, but we have contributors from Wormhole Space, LowSec. We try and bring people in and get a little bit more out there. So we have regular factional warfare pieces and regular sort of general EVE or nullsec pieces. We've also expanded into writing about more games than just EVE. So that's been kind of crazy to start. Like, hey, I'm spending some of my time as a games journalist now, which is kind of crazy. Probably the thing that surprised me most about EVE is just getting involved in so many different things, and then looking up like a month later and going, wow, I'm doing something that I never would have imagined like a year ago.
Excuse me. So Matani.com, thematani.com, and you can check that out. There's a link in the description. And if somebody wanted to get a hold of you and reach out to you, what is the best way?
Probably Twitter. I picked up Twitter when I started running for the CSM, and it's an easy platform for just, quick one-off conversations or whatever. On Twitter, I am at Ali_of_space.
Okay. I'll write that in the description as well.
Yeah.
So make it a little bit easy.
Check that a lot. I check that a lot. I respond to that much faster than I do to EVE mails in game. My long-running project is improving that response time, but it's one of those kind of crazy things.
I only have 500 or 600 unread messages in my box, so yeah. I know what you're talking about. So, okay, Ali, thank you very much.
Yeah,
I appreciate your time. Good luck.
Thank you.
I think that by the time that this airs, we'll know whether or not you are in for the next term, and and congratulations on making this term. Having been here, and
yeah, thanks. It's been a blast.
Yeah. What an awesome opportunity. So, okay.
Great.
Well,
thank you very much.
Take care, everybody, and those links are in the description. Hit them now. It's right there.